Okay, great. Welcome. So as you join us, I'm not quite sure how many will join us. If we have just a few number, we can go around and introduce ourselves quickly. But if we have more than a dozen, we'll just have to introduce ourselves in the chat. Okay, so it looks like we have 10 participants. All right, so we can just go around and do a quick introduction. I'm Hal Hagedorn. I'm the moderator for Funding and Stewardship. If you accidentally joined our room and want to be moved, let me know and I can move you. And I will popcorn it over to Kenny real quick to introduce himself.
Hey everyone, I'm Kenny Worth. I'm a second year graduate student in urban regional planning. Just here to take notes. So have fun.
How about Michelle Marks?
Hi, I'm Michelle. I am the pedestrian coordinator over at the Portland Bureau of Transportation. And I'll hand it over to Amy.
Hi, I'm Senior Project Manager with Prosper Portland, the city's economic development agency. And I'll hand it over to Mark.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mark Raggett. I'm an urban designer and planner with GBD Architects. I'm also on Friends of Green Loop and the Pedestrian Advisory Committee. I have to pick someone. Sorry. How about Marnie?
Hi, I was just going to volunteer myself anyway. Hi, I'm Marnie Duke. I'm a project manager at the Regional Travel Options Program at Metro. Sorry, technical difficulty. I'll hand it over to Ellen, who I think we met before earlier, but just a refresher.
Yes, well, I'm Ellen Shoshkis, teach at Portland State and one of the organizers of this event.
I can jump in. I'm Brett Morgan. I work for 1000 Friends of Oregon as their Metro Advocacy Manager. I'm starting my videos off. I'm kind of watching something else in the background, but I'm enjoying listening to this, and I'll chime in if I have the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Great. How about Stephanie? I see you on the screen.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Frederick. I live down in Brentwood, Darlington, and I'm chair of the Land Use Committee of the Neighborhood Association.
Great. Have we heard from Gary Obery yet?
Yes. Hi, Gary Obery. I do bicycle and pedestrian traffic engineering at ODOT. And I'll pass it over. I'm not sure who else is. Somebody.
Mohammed.
Yes.
Mohammed? Yes.
Hi,
okay.
everyone. Mohammed. I work for Division Midway Alliance, and I am a student at Portland State as well. And I will pass it to, did Mark go?
Marnie went. How about Emily? Have we heard from Emily? All right. How about Thomas? Have we heard from Thomas?
Hi, no, I'm Thomas Bennett. I'm with the urban designer with GF Architects.
Great. And so I hope you can see my screen. So the purpose of our breakout session is to talk about funding and stewardship models. I thought it would be easiest to sort of look at some existing funding models. So if you go to publicspacesstewardship.org, the city of, I believe, San Francisco has some existing models that they use in order to fund their public spaces program. These include event-based models, GRAS community partnerships, a public-private partnership model, special assessment districts, and then maintenance and or technical assistance partnerships. So just wanted to throw it out there as we consider these, these different models, and there may be other out there. So maybe the first question is, do you know of any other other possible funding and stewardship models that exist that don't fit into this framework?
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite follow along with everything you presented in here, but I know just from previous experience in another city that business improvement districts are a commonly used model for funding and also for maintaining these spaces.
Great, that's a good one. And that might fit into the special assessment district right down there. Any others?
Hi, everyone. I didn't get a chance to introduce myself before. Alex Zimmerman, pronouns are she and her. I am actually exploring this idea as a member of the Northwest District Parking Stakeholder Advisory Group. And so one of the things we've learned is that it may be possible to use some of the parking meter revenue funding for the public part of the infrastructure. So as long as it's accessible to the public, to the community at large, that could potentially help with things like street seats, furnishings, even something like painted curb extensions to protect the space. So that's more of kind of leveraging other funding, but it's a piece that we think we might be able to play with.
Oh, great.
One thing that I will share, in the Brentwood Darlington neighborhood, we've got a neighborhood project for right-of-way improvements that started out very small scale, and we've just had some neighbors donate, and then mostly it's just time, neighbors volunteering time, which takes a lot of organization to set up that framework and be clear about it. But we're a pretty mixed income area, and so trying to figure out who are the folks that have the expendable income and then the folks that don't, engaging them through volunteering.
One other thing, just kind of lessons learned that are happening right now. I know that Keith Jones from Friends of the Green Loop is working on getting some of the displaced food carts back in operation around the city, particularly around the culinary corridor and maybe at the South Park blocks. And so I know that he has created a toolkit, kind of a practical application for how do you handle some of these challenges, like having water to an area, bathroom to an area like the Portland Loo, who's responsible for the cleaning, trash, that sort of thing. So I think there are other folks in other spaces tackling some of these practical steps as well for the stewardship piece.
Alexandria, is that information available on a website or a link that you can share with folks?
I don't think so. I only know because Keith and I are chatting about some other public activations. And so I know that he's been working with South Park Block's master plan and the culinary corridor kind of along the area by Southwest Washington where all the food carts were displaced, trying to find homes for them. So at this point, I think honestly it's reaching out to him directly, but I think his information should be available on Friends of the Green Loop website.
And actually, since Nora is working on that project for the MERP workshop, she might be able to get that information.
Oh, that's a great idea. That's excellent. So for this discussion, Kenny actually pasted a link to a Google Jamboard. If you click on this link, this is an opportunity, and I think we can take a couple minutes here to think about the funding and stewardship from these three categories that Nick wanted us to talk about. The first is daydreaming. What are the biggest opportunities in this topic area, and what is the vision of the future we would strive for in the next 4 years? On the next slide is thinking about like the reality check. What are the biggest barriers to achieving success? And then why haven't we done this already? And then the third is the next steps. What groups or people are working in this area and should be included, and who is missing from the conversation? So have you used Jamboard before? If you haven't, it's fairly easy to do. Just click on this sticky note and then you can type in your response, and then put it in one of the 3 areas. We can do that right now, and I will give folks 5 minutes to think about those 3 categories, put their sticky note on the board, and then after the 5 minutes, we'll go through and talk about some of these thoughts that you have percolating in your head as to how we can address the funding and stewardship piece for these public spaces.
Just in case anyone else needed to discover this, like I had to, you have to be out of full screen view in order to effectively go back and forth between the Zoom and the Jamboard.
All right, so we have a couple of ideas.
I'm sorry, but I don't know how do I click on a blank? How do I get a blank sticky note?
So on the left-hand side of your screen, if you hover over the icon that says sticky note, or you can also do Control-Shift-P, that will bring up a screen that says sticky note. And then you can enter in your idea on that sticky. Yay!
Sorry.
What?
Oh, nothing. I just was saying I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Well, I'm hovering and nothing.
You have to click on it,
Clicked
Stephanie?
on it.
Yeah, click on it. Try that.
Okay, I clicked. I've been clicking away.
Okay.
Okay, so it's Shift, Control P.
Control-Shift-P, yes. Did that work for you?
No, but maybe.
Are you using a Mac?
Yes.
I don't speak Mac. Is anybody else using a Mac that can help Stephanie?
What's your question?
She can't get the sticky note to work.
Okay, you just click on the little, looks like a piece of paper.
Yeah, I'm clicking.
Oh, you might be on, you might be on a house PowerPoint presentation
Sorry,
rather
you're
than
the
Jamboard.
Oh, where is the Jamboard?
So you have to stop, first of all, get out of full screen view. So exit full screen, and then into your browser, copy and paste the link that Kenny put in. If you look at the chat, it's at 12:17 p.m. He pasted the link. And then if you copy and paste that into your browser, you'll get the Jamboard, and then you can keep two screens open.
So I find this URL where?
If you look in the chat.
Yeah.
Okay, it's in the chat. All right.
At 12:17. But also, if you would rather just speak out loud or type.
No. I'm going to stop bothering you in a moment. I'm going to get this.
It's okay. It's okay. Great. I love this. It's being populated with all of these great ideas. And it, I think the daydream is the biggest section right now. We don't have many reality checks and next steps. So let's see. So one idea that is posted on here says, in so much as these are potential pocket parks, public plazas, perhaps a new park spawn could help us construct and maintain these public spaces. So I'm going to pick on whoever wrote that to talk more about that.
That was me.
Oh, that's Michelle. Okay.
So I have some experience from working in the city of Seattle in creating these public uses in the right of way, and there are successes really were attributable to partnering between the Department of Transportation and parks really had the capacity to program these spaces, maintain these spaces, the know-how to design public spaces. So that's why I say, in so much as these really are, urban parks, pocket parks, really partnering and leaning on parks' expertise and conceptualizing these as public parks, I think can help close, the knowledge gap that we on the PBOT side have. And again, in so much as these could be conceptualized as new city parks, it stands to reason that there's an argument to be made for a citywide parks bond, especially focusing on some areas of the city that are underparked, and underparked meaning public places, not vehicles, but underparked, like some of those areas that Mike showed us on the map in East Portland and Deep Southeast and North Portland. Could these be opportunity areas for creating new parks in the public space we already own? No need to acquire new land to provide it. So
Michelle, do you see a path at all for community development block grants to help with something like that, and maybe like a more flexible use when you could partner with something like a bond that might take a longer amount of time?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Alexandra, one that I hadn't considered. Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, maybe not. When you say community development block grants, you mean the federal program? Or
right, and then coming down through, the metro region or the city as a pipeline,
right.
and just kind of, you would have to create at the city or regional level the program, but then to be eligible for something more flexible like that, where I don't know how you would funnel it into the neighborhood, maybe working with CBOs or neighborhood associations, something. I'm just trying to think about, how to funnel more flexible money directly to the community. And then also leaning on something like a bond where you have that more steady source of income.
Mm-hmm. There's a couple of metro programs that our parks program has some good examples of where they've used bond money and have as a goal of making sure that money gets back into communities. And I can search for some of those examples. I also did put in the last slide that the program that I help manage already has funding opportunities for light infrastructure in our federal grant program. It's a federal grant, so folks have to be a nonprofit and they can be a little cumbersome. But we already do have that ability.
Great, thanks for sharing that, Marnie. So I'm going to pick on this one next, the wide menu of street use options for regular folks to pick up and start. Who shared that thought, and would you like to elaborate on this? Because I think other folks love this idea too.
That was me. Yeah, I just have a vision of, someone waking up one day and just saying that they want to do it not on their own, but like be the initiator. And I think I have a duplicate of this in the next one, in the next slide. Of it doesn't have to be planners or advocates. It could be someone, and not for a huge commitment. If someone wanted to have a street party and block off their block for a weekend or something like that, which I think we're close to already being able to do within the city of Portland.
Yeah, the Portland in the Streets program.
Yeah, and in some ways, the Better Block PDX, right, that advocacy group was sort of the start of trying to get the community and neighbors and just regular people to envision how to create better spaces for their neighborhood. And so
like I live in Woodstock, the folks, one of my favorite places, Otto's Sausage Kitchen, or Sausage House. They have a lot of customers who come back and forth across Woodstock, and it's kind of a hard intersection, and someone's put out buckets with flags so people can walk across the street with a flag and hope to not get hit by a car. I bet those folks would love to get on the website and see examples of ideas of things that they could do to, something beyond flags.
A comment that I have around that is that regarding Portland in the streets, I was under the impression that they're only doing business related things right now. I'd reached out to try and do a residential project and they said, nope, we're focusing on business things right now. Do we know if that's changing?
I think that what they meant was that it's on hiatus because of the COVID pandemic. And so for right now, it's the Healthy Business Permit program that PBOT's doing. They're not officially running Portland in the streets. It's been subsumed. There's Art.
Hey, yeah, sorry. The element that is will be coming back this summer is the block party portion of the portfolio. I think, they're not feeling that the team isn't feeling resourced to do all of the array of programs, but I think it's worth raising your question again and seeing whether it can fit into that. If it's a street painting program, I don't know. I'm not sure which program it is that you were hoping to reconnect with.
Yeah, I've reached out to them a few times and keep getting that answer. It's right-of-way improvements for public spaces, doing urban habitat. And I've hit a bunch of dead ends with the city, and so I'm just sort of like going on without their explicit support.
Got it. Yeah. That might be the right way to go in the near term. Yeah. So depending on a lot of they went all in on the Healthy Business program. So they did freeze all the other activities. So it may be stuck in ice for the next short period, but I think it's worth raising it in this conversation as a need, and we can try to figure out if that's something we can resource. So.
Does anybody have any other daydream ideas that they want to share before we should probably talk about barriers?
I just want to sort of underscore what Art said and what Mike said. And a big part of this is programming. So when we talk about it, it's not just finding the money for the infrastructure or the maintenance, but it's the activation too.
Yeah, no, in fact, I guess I can reiterate, that's why I wanted to pick this group is I think that's what's kept us from doing this, is allowing cars to, they're essentially curating the streets for us currently. And so we don't have all the challenges that happen when you don't have automobile traffic coming through them. And so it really does beg a question of, how do we curate space if cars aren't doing it for us? And who does that? Is that PBOT's role? Is that another entity's role? We don't have the organizational or civic infrastructure established to understand how to really healthily and over a long term curate space. And so I think it's a sort of a fundamental building block of this success. Yeah.
I'd just like to speak up on behalf of the fighting the climate crisis. Hello?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We can hear you.
One of the things we need to do is we've got to get people to stop driving so much and to stop driving such giant cars that use so much fuel and put so many bad emissions into the air. And so until we send a price signal to these people, they're going to keep buying their giant pickups and vans and so on, SUVs. So we need to raise fuel taxes, vehicle taxes, if it's electric vehicle, but especially, I forget the electric, I'm focusing on the cars that emit carbon-based emissions. We need to tax them and then use that money to invest in public spaces. So there you address climate and community at the same time.
I'll put out another maybe idea that, it's sort of building on the model of the adopt a street or adopt a green street thing, but sort of partnerships with, I don't know, youth organizations or local libraries or whatever, sort of civic resources are in the area that sort of adopt a plaza and take responsibility for programming it with activities that spin out of their services or whatever.
That might be kind of hard on the libraries.
Great. And it, you know, and some of these models sound really good, the parks, the libraries, but I think one of my concerns is all of these agencies are squeezed for resources, right? And so as we're looking to other public agencies to do things that I think that's something to consider. So to me, like that could be a potential barrier as well, because they may not have the resources to.
We're on the daydream board.
We are on the daydream
and
board.
Also, you know, I think a lot of libraries actually are doing this in the parking lots and the streets that are like adjacent to their buildings. They've started.
Great. So we have 4 minutes left. Should we tackle and talk about, and we're not going to be able to talk about everything, but let's just talk about some of the barriers that we see with funding and stewardship. I think our presenters this morning talked about many of the barriers, but let's see what you have come up with. So I stopped sharing my screen because I'm having some difficulties with my computer, but hopefully you're following along on the Jamboard. I will invite, actually, rather than calling on people, if somebody has a burning barrier that they want to talk about. How about who put down neighbors get upset when parking goes away? I feel like this is sort of always a perpetual barrier, but let's just talk that one from the public spaces perspective.
That was mine. That, like I said, we do some right-of-way improvement things, and we planted a bunch of native plants, and the gas station nearby got mad because people couldn't park as much at the gas station, which I don't really understand that connect, but any space, people get upset about that, and that's something that in planning we talk a lot about, but is continuously a barrier around, I think, public education, but always a consideration.
Ellen, you're unmuted. Did you have one that you wanted to bring up?
Well, actually, I put up the burnout. You know, people are enthusiastic for a while about something, and then, you know, they get tired of it, or they conflicts within the group. It's hard to sustain.
And I think that's similar to this comment, consider anchor tenant of sorts to be mainstay as folks move on to the next thing. So that's also similar to the burnout issue. What about this lack of enthusiasm? Who put that up, and did you want to speak to that? No one wants to claim that. That's fine. How about the building trust in with communities? I see lots of heads nodding. Okay, I know that somebody in this room just put up the perception of agency liability. I will pick on that person.
Yes, Hal, that was me, Gary.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I have to fess up to that. I hear that a lot at ODOT, and I think other agencies are always being mindful of that. So it's first reaction is no to a lot of the stuff that's proposed, unfortunately.
And then did you also put up the actual use may not match intended use?
No.
Who put up that one? That's an interesting notion.
I'm just adding to that one here. I didn't.
Elizabeth, was that you?
Like Elizabeth.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just trying to think. I think, you know, when we think about these public spaces, often we have sort of an image of how they'll be used or who will be using them. And when we build them, it may not reflect that. And neighbors and community groups may not want to see these programs continue if their sort of visions aren't realized.
Right.
That was the fastest 30 minutes.
It really was.
It was. Maybe, do we have time to look at the last one for the next steps? So does anybody want to talk about what they see as sort of a next step to this? Or are we going to be kicked back out?
It's the final countdown.
It's the final countdown.
I'll jump in. I did the extra long one. I've been spending
Okay.
some time thinking about that. I feel like there's a really need for a curated process that brings together business and nonprofit sector, with government entities to sort of identify who might do this and sort of the pros and.
It looks like we're all coming back from our breakout rooms. I'm watching the numbers tick up as people rejoin our large group. So yes, welcome back from your breakout groups. I hope your discussion was engaging and informative. I hope you were able to share your questions or comments in the chat, in the discussion, in the Post-it note tool, because we want to be able to refer back to these notes and share what we've learned. So I want to just take a moment to kind of hear from our facilitators, just a sliver of what you discussed. I'm going to give each of our facilitators just a couple minutes to report back to the large group, to share kind of what the discussion explored, what you found most striking of the ideas, and whatever you wanted to kind of bring back to the larger group in this wrap-up moment. So Julius, if you could start us out with a summary of what you all talked about in your group.
Yeah, there was a lot of really great discussions. I think something that that immediately stood out that I think sort of applied to all three aspects of what we're doing here. So the dream, but also addressed to the practicality and next steps, was mutual aid.